across the board. So if it was some sort of major pattern, you would see it in that analysis, and then we're doing a spot check as well.
Okay.
I think it's good practice.
Thank you very much. I might go to Senator Steele-John for your questions if you like now.
In outcome board. Thank you, Chair. That's very much appreciated. My questions are in relation to the government response to the Senate inquiry report into thalidomide, but more specifically on the health department's work in that area. So I'm not sure who that's best directed
We'll
to.
swap out again.
Making sure you get exercise during the day, you know. Excellent. All right. Fantastic. Okay. Now I'm really sorry. Can't really.
Glasses are in the way.
Yeah. We are. Yes. And excellent. All right. Fantastic. Some of you may or may not know there was a Senate motion passed through during the last sitting calling on the government to speed this response process up in light of the experience of survivors in waiting for this. I think Senator Colbeck would agree it was quite a bracing response we got back from the government in regard to that, telling us to mind our own business since we'd never been in power ourselves. So in that light, I'd like to really straightforwardly ask Dr. Studdert where the Health Department is up to in coordinating the government's response to that inquiry report.
Thank you, Senator. As you know, this is something we've had some engagement with you on and the committee over multiple hearings, and something that we are very intent on replying to as comprehensively and as efficiently as we can.
We need a date, Doctor. Give us a date.
I'm not in a position to give that to you because, as you know, ultimately this is a matter for the government to respond to. We are providing advice to the Minister and the government, and we're in the process of finalising that. It is advice that we have to consult with other departments on, so it does take a bit of a process.
All right, lovely. I'll pause you there and just go to the Minister. Minister, give us a date.
Well, until we receive advice, we can't.
You've just
we
been
can't
provided
provide-
with advice.
We're working
Well,
on that.
actually, no, that's not correct, Senator O'Neill. The department is still working on advice, and as we've just heard, coordinating with other departments. There are a range of things that we're considering as part of that process, and once the advice is finalised, then the Minister can consider it. And so, in that context, it's not possible to give you a date as much as you might like one.
All right, we'll try it a different way then. What stage is the advice at within the department? How long before you expect you're able to give it to the Minister?
Senator, I would be a bit hesitant to put a specific time frame on it because it does depend on variables that are not entirely within our control, but we are working, I promise you, on a very diligently daily basis to progress that, and the Minister is keen to get it as well, and so we will be doing it as fast as we can.
My
advice from the Minister is that he'd like to get it done very soon.
I would hope so. Of the elements that are within your purview, what stage is that work at?
We certainly have a draft document that we are working on finalising.
So Health has a draft document of the parts that relate to health, or of the parts
of all the responses, but still in discussion with others around the final details that will be included in that.
Senator, the department is coordinating a whole of government response. And some of the recommendations actually go to financial support, as you would appreciate, and special arrangements around NDIS. And as you would appreciate, funding arrangements and financial considerations need to go through proper budget process within government. So that does take additional
Absolutely.
time if we're looking at those sorts of considerations and a considered government response. So, as the Minister said, I know Minister Hunt wants to get it done as soon as possible and has been meeting with groups of recent times.
I know. So you're coordinating the response. The response, it requires interactions with finance, for instance, due to elements around remuneration and redress. How many different departments are involved, have been required to provide responses?
I said logistics.
I just said that our main wasn't doing
We've got 4 altogether, Senator.
And which departments are those?
We're working with the Department of Social Services, the Department of Human Services, the National Disability Insurance Agency, and the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet.
And of those 4, how many, if any, have provided responses to date to help?
That we're still in an iterative process, Senator, where we're looking to...
So are you saying that neither of those 4 departments have fully
No, I think
responded
they've
to
all
help?
provided some material, but we're still working with them to finalise that response. And I would think that we also need to talk to the Department of Finance as that progresses as well. And that would be in conjunction with the conversations with the
Have you
Department
begun those conversations with the Department of
There
Finance?
have been some conversations, yes.
So can you expand on that a little bit? Some
Well, as
conversations
the
I could...
Secretary said, that then starts to play into budget processes, and they are an ongoing process which we don't discuss in detail in these forums.
So you're telling me that you have begun conversations, but you cannot inform me as to where the conversations specifically are, like a timeline for. Do you expect a response from the Department of Finance within the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months?
I suspect there will be conversations with the Department of Finance over the next couple of weeks, and maybe quite possibly the next few months, because of the budget cycles that we have to work within.
Minister, is it your understanding that the Health Minister wants to respond to this report before or as part of the budget process?
Well, the advice I have from the Minister's office is he would like to respond very soon. You can make of that as you like, but that's the advice that I have from the Minister's office.
So very soon is the best we could get.
Well, it's better than not soon. I am
very
trying
high
to be
bar,
helpful.
though, is it?
Well, actually, I would have
Not
thought that's a
really.
reasonable response. I mean,
No.
I understand that you're looking for something more specific. I'm not in a position.
I'm
to be able
looking
to
for
give you that.
nothing, Minister. Survivors are looking for something more specific.
No, I acknowledge that, and I
Yeah.
think that's reasonable. My conversation with the Minister's office is that he's looking to respond very soon.
So, okay.
And as you've heard, there are a range of conversations that are afoot across government and processes that have to be undertaken. But the Minister's office wouldn't have told me very soon if they didn't mean that.
Dr. Steddard, you mentioned finance there and the question of financial compensation. Is it therefore correct
Sorry,
to
Senator,
say...
I don't think Dr Studdert spoke
Sorry.
I don't think Dr Studdert spoke about compensation. I think she spoke about financial arrangements. And the financial arrangements and the recommendations include, amongst other things, additional access to health services and special arrangements around NDIS, which do involve financial considerations.
One of the key recommendations of the Senate inquiry report, as you'd well know, is financial compensation to survivors. Is that a recommendation that is being explored by Health or any other department as part of the response of the government?
That's something that's being looked at, and there's certainly nothing that's been put to government around that at this stage.
But there are any direct conversations that have happened between Health
I
and...
don't think I could go into any direct conversations because, as I said, some of these are... Well, this is a decision for government, and we're working with relevant agencies on coming up with advice to give to government.
Do you intend to give advice to government in relation to the recommendations that speak to a redress scheme?
We will give advice to government on all the recommendations,
Okay.
Senator, as part of a complete proposed response, yes.
Okay, thank you. That'll do.
Okay, Senator Hughes had a question on
Joe,
that.
just a couple, if I could, on Thalidomide as well. Could you maybe just update us on what payments have been received to date by survivors?
Senator, we can give you a little bit of information, but because it's not something the government has been directly involved in, we have never assumed that we have a full picture.
Yeah.
There is some information some of the survivors have shared with us, and some we know from some of the reports and analyses that have been done over the years. The Senate inquiry, yes, but I wouldn't want to purport that we have a full picture, that we know and could advise on a full picture. But if you wanted to add to that, Mike.
Happy to give you what we have. And it's worth pointing out the Australian government does, of course, provide the disability support pension for both singles and couples, so that has been provided to some survivors. So Distillers and Diageo have made a number of payments throughout the period of time. So in the 1970s, there was a settlement with Distillers. There was a payment to parents of $48,407.69 per survivor. There was also a trust fund set up in that same period of time for $506,324.89 per survivor. In 2010, there was a separate settlement with Diageo, and the average of that was $64,285 per annum. There was $1.1 million per beneficiary in total, and that was scaled based on the severity of their injuries. And then in 2013, there was a separate settlement with Diageo, the average of $891,178.95 per survivor. We're not aware of the distribution arrangements of that.
Okay. And are you aware of any, this isn't a new issue. Are you aware of thalidomide survivors approaching any previous governments with regards to compensation payments, or is this the first time it's ever come to government?
I don't think we are aware of an approach of the kind that has been made in the last few years, and I think to some extent that has been. We are certainly aware and quite mindful of the stage of life that the survivors are getting to, where they are absolutely feeling the effects of a life lived with disability. So from my understanding and conversations with some of the survivors and through the consultations that my team have done, and certainly through what we heard from the inquiry, we understand why that effort has been made at this time. I can't recall any other previous engagement such as we've seen in the last couple of years. No, I don't think.
No, not that we could find.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Sorry.
You referenced survivors are living with the impact of a life lived with disability. As somebody who lives a life impacted by disability, I must draw your attention to the distinction between living with cerebral palsy and living with something that is created as the result of a systemic regulatory failure, the most significant in this country's history. They are very different things. It's utterly inappropriate to
Thalidomide wasn't under government control at the time it was marketed, was it?
Senator Hughes, it absolutely was. Read the report. My distinction I'm drawing your attention to, however, is that it would actually be considered rather offensive to equate a disabled person such as myself with a thalidomide and living with the effects of a regulatory failure, a man-made and imposed disability.
I absolutely apologise, Senator. I absolutely meant no offence. I was just recalling, as I have heard from the survivors I've talked to, their recollection, their descriptions
dying.
to me.
Yes, they are
exactly.
dying.
And they have aged.
Hence the urgency in my line of questioning.
I absolutely understand that, and I apologise for any offence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator McMahon's just got a couple of questions, and then we'll.
Are they on thalidomide as well?
No.
Could I just ask one or two, if I can, on this topic? Very soon can mean a whole lot of different things to different people. What sort of period of time do you mean when you say very soon, Senator Colbeck?
Well, it's not what I mean, it's the advice that I've received from the Minister's office, and I give it to you in the terms that it was provided to me, and I would regard very soon as the not too distant future. And so, look, I mean, you can try and
laugh and matter.
Before Christmas?
I'm not the one laughing, Senator
I find
Steele-John.
it
It's Senator O'Neill who's laughing at the response.
Yes, I'm laughing at your response because of the pressure I think that needs to be applied to the government to give
Senator
a
O'Neill, if
timely
you'd stop
response.
talking
Senator,
over me
please
as you've
let the
done all
Minister
day,
respond.
and
No,
let me
I
answer the
haven't,
question.
but I do want an
Please
answer
let
to
the
my
Minister
question.
respond.
I have
Senator
given
O'Neill.
you a response that I've received from the Minister's office. It's not given in any other way than within the intent that it was intended, as except for to say very soon. I would expect that the Minister, obviously having met with some of the people who've had to manage their lives with the effects of thalidomide, he understands that very well. I took it in the terms that the intention of the Minister was to deal with it very soon. And that doesn't, to me, mean a long time, it means very soon. And so I'm not trying to, and I think it's unfortunate that Senator O'Neill would try and put some sort of interpretation on it. I cannot give you a specific date, as much as I might like to.
I'm the one who's asked you the question, Senator Colbeck.
And, well, Senator O'Neill, I've given you and Senator Steele-John a response that's been given to me by the Minister's office. I think he's given it to me and to the committee with good intent, and so I don't try and interpret it in any other way. He has said to me, his office has said to me, he wants to respond to this report very soon. There's work being undertaken by the department as the lead agency with other agencies, and so any sense to interpret this in any other than a response in good intent, I refute. It is given in good intent, and it's clear to me that the Minister would like to respond to this very soon, and I'm not trying, and I don't try to interpret it in any other way. As much as the committee or any particular senator might like a specific response, there are processes that we're dealing with, and I'm sure the Minister understands the urgency that the issue is being brought to him via the committee.
Well, with respect, Senator Colbeck, given that the report was landed in March, here we are approaching November, I don't think it's unrealistic for the survivors of thalidomide and their families who care a great deal about your response to this report, who are, waiting every day to ask.
Now, I would
and wondering what's going on.
Well, senators, you can
Would you give a commitment to
characterise
deliver
this any
before
way
Christmas,
you like.
Senator
I've been
Colbeck?
quite genuine in my response.
I appreciate
and
that.
You can
My
verbal me all
question
you
is-
like, Senator O'Neill, but my response has been quite genuine. The Minister and the Minister's office have told me they would like to deal with this very soon.
Would there be a response
and that response has been given
before
to me,
Christmas?
I think, in good intent. With
Senator
good
O'Neill,
Will
the
you
Minister
commit
has
to
answered the
delivering this
question.
before Christmas
Senator,
to these
if I could
people
give
who
you
are
a
waiting?
date, I would be more than happy to do so, but I'm giving you the response that I've been given by the Minister and his office as his representative here.
Do you think it's unreasonable for thalidomide survivors to expect a response from the government before Christmas?
Senator, I've said to you that the Minister would like to respond to this very soon. I take him at his word.
Well, can I just indicate that, that Labor's certainly very much aware of this issue and very in line with the sentiments that Senator Steele-John's articulated here this afternoon, that this is a matter that needs resolution, and I think it should be given the the highest priority in terms of response.
Thank you. We might move to Senator McMahon now.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. My question relates to hospital funding arrangements. Do we need to get someone else? Could you please detail what are the arrangements that provide Commonwealth funding to hospitals in the Northern Territory?
Yes, Senator. So hospitals are primarily the responsibility of the Territory Government in the Northern Territory. So they're the operator of the system and make decisions about what procedures should or shouldn't happen in those hospitals, employ the doctors, all that sort of stuff. However, in accordance with an intergovernmental agreement, the Commonwealth provides contribution to the cost of running public hospitals, and that's managed in accordance with a complex funding formula, which effectively is calculated by some independent bodies, which are in existence, the Independent Hospital Pricing Authority and the Administrator of Hospital Funding Body. And it works by the states and territories providing data as to the activity that occurs in their hospitals. So at the beginning of the year, they provide an estimate. We expect to provide this amount of activity. The Independent Hospital Pricing Authority costs the what's called the efficient price. So how can you efficiently do a hip replacement or any other sort of procedure that happens in a hospital, and provides a price. Then we make payments through the funding administrator and they get allocated to local hospital networks. And then at the end of the year, there's a reconciliation of how much activity did happen in the hospital in accordance with the formula. And then there's a finalisation of the year. So that's the initial summary. Of course, in relation to private hospitals, the arrangements are different, funded, but often MBS payments can be made in relation to services provided in those hospitals which are made by the Commonwealth. But the public hospitals is, I think, what you're mainly aiming at here. Yes.
Do you know how much funding the NT government receives from the Commonwealth for NT hospitals?
Yes, I do. My colleague might have the numbers in front of her.
I can